Pikeville City Manager's Report. I'm your host, Jill Fraley-Dotson, along with Pikeville City Manager Donovan Blackburn, a time when we get together to discuss all of the great things happening in and around the city of Pikeville and to let you know just exactly what you can expect in the weeks and the months to come. Good day to you, Donovan.
Well, Jill, good day.
It's been a while.
It has been. Where you been?
Where have you been? We've both been very, very busy, but the great thing is, out of that busyness comes a lot of great opportunities, many things that we're going to talk about today. Official start of summer is here, and we have all sorts of things to let all of our residents in the area and surrounding area know about too.
Yeah. Sun is shining, the humidity is up, and it's time to get busy.
It's exactly right. Speaking of getting busy, we have a lot of projects that we're going to talk about today. Everything from Muscle on Main Street Live, update on our retail development that you can certainly see all of the action that's going on that location. But one of our projects that we've discussed frequently throughout the last couple of months has been the terrace seating project that's in the Riverfield. That is nearing completion, and it's going to be a great opportunity for many different events. So update us to start on the terrace seating project.
Well, it's, first of all, it's an exciting project because if you are looking at the Riverfield and, it's a great piece of property. And it can be utilized for so many different things, Jill. The problem has been is even when we've done the burnouts or the drag racing, the problem is putting people up on a grassy knoll or up on the bank's parking lot. It's just not really conducive for the type of usage that we're using it for. So, the city commission sat back and said, what can we do to try to enhance opportunities for additional events downtown? And when we looked at the contour of the riverbank, it was just too steep. But after doing some research, a lot of folks are doing this terrace seating. Now that people kind of see it, other than just on a picture, what you see it's more of an earth tone, kind of earth groove to it. But it follows the contour of the property. If you're actually standing on the Riverfield looking at it, it looks like their street seats are straight. They're not. They actually kind of curve around when you're on the site. So it's kind of unique. So what you see is when you're actually on the site is you'll be sitting to somebody and they kind of pooch out a little bit and it kind of comes back through. So it follows the natural contour of the land over there. The seats themselves will seat about 2,500 people. So if you're in the Expo Center, that's half the seats of the Expo Center. So it's a massive footprint. But it also took an area that was grass, slope, a lot of greenery over there that at times grew up, and it really made it into something. It really pretty design. Actually, my wife and I, we walk in the evenings and got out yesterday and got into the fenced area. And when you're sitting there looking across the other way, because the only place I've really seen it from is from the Riverfield side. I haven't really seen it from the perspective of the seats. But when you get from the perspective of the seats, it's amazing how gigantic the area is, and then also the view. Seeing the new Judicial Center right in front of you, it's just an absolutely gorgeous view of downtown area. But then you look at all the space that's in front of you where the current parking area is that could be utilized for so many different events. It'll be a process for us. We want to obviously not only do the drag racing, but on top of that, we've got some big plans hopefully for some summer concerts that we were talking about a moment ago, it just unleashes so many possibilities of a venue that could be utilized that's in downtown Pikeville.
Well, I think one of the great things too is that we had discussed this at the initial, the time when it was decided that we were going to put the terrace seating in. It does open up a lot of different opportunities for summer concert series. They have a CMA Fest in Nashville that we could, potentially in years to come have events like that here. Yep. But it was such a unique opportunity that wasn't a bunch of metal bleachers that you stuck on a hillside somewhere. You took what we already had, which is something that we're going to talk a little bit about later, using what God has given us here to develop something into that our local residents can use and would be a tourist destination for years to come.
Well, and I'm glad you mentioned that, because one of the things that the City Commission has been very, very aware of over the last several years that I've worked with these guys is when you look at downtown, Jill, and I'll brag a little bit because it's like very few across the country. It's got its unique flavor to it. A lot of wonderful construction projects have taken place that have had a lot of thought put into them. again, when you look at the Judicial Center and you look at what the county, and I was on that board, so the city served a piece of it, and there was a lot of thought in how the design and how it was going to mirror the downtown image. So different components of the historical value of downtown were put into the concept of the building. So there's been a lot of thought in how the city has grown and what we want it to look like downtown. We want to keep the the nostalgic kind of feel to it, but yet still advance and create an arts and cultural district. And part of the arts is creating entertainment venues. So, to your point, yes, we could have went over and put bleachers in, metal bleachers and ugly seats. And actually, the first proposal that I brought to the commission, that's what they were. And they said, no, they don't want that. The original plan, and actually what was bid out, had a chain link fence around the back of it. We've got rid of that. The commission wants the aesthetics to be appealing, to kind of flow with what we've done with the downtown area. So, it's kind of funny. I just left City Hall coming down and had a gentleman that's not from here that was in doing an audit and just bragging about how beautiful our downtown area is. And we hear that all the time. We're appreciative of that. We don't take it for granted. We know it comes through a lot of hard work, and a lot of design. I mean, with the projects that Main Street is doing now, on top of what
you see new facades going up every single day. I was in front of Richie's
Yep.
Hallmark the other day, and the older part of the building is gone, and they're working on updating that too. And big shout out to Minta and everything that she does with the Main Street program.
Well, the Main Street board, and I've said this several times, I mean, these are a board of volunteers that love their community, that have a lot of insight, and then Minta really takes her job to heart, and she, I say this with love, and because I do love her dearly, and she came in the office yesterday, and she had this gigantic ideal, and I kept saying, Minta cost. We got to be aware of the cost. We got to make them workable. We got to make it look good, but we also have to remain. So she gets her feelings hurt sometimes when it doesn't look just the way she wants it to look, because she really takes ownership in these projects. So we're very blessed to have the staff that I have, but also to have those that volunteer their time to serve their community in the ways that they do in order to bring these ideals forward. So this terrace seating project, Jill, is no different. It's a natural look. It follows the contour of the property. What we're talking about doing again is getting rid of the fence on the bypass, is to put some guardrail in closer to the road, so that way to protect the pedestrians and people that are seated from the vehicles. Looking at the top of the ramp, I've had several folks ask me, the top of the ramp will have some rails and some special needs seating. People that are in wheelchairs that need seating, we'll be able to bring them up at the top, because obviously there's a lot of steps involved as well. So, again, a lot of thought went into how we needed to make this thing functional, but how we also needed to make it aesthetically pleasing. So it's a nice investment for the community. But what I really was intrigued about was all the opportunity, because the intent was to service the drag racing event. We got several thousand people that come out for that event. We just had our first one. We got rained out the first month. This past weekend we had our first one. There was a couple of other events going on around the region that also had drag racing, and kind of took the crowd and the participants down. But we've got a lot of ideals for the next month. It'll really be bigger and better. We've got, Larry McGoy, who's the tourism director, he's new. He's learning his way also. So found a few mistakes that they want to correct, and really would prefer to open, and hopefully the terrace seating will be done sometime in July. Hopefully it will be done by the next event. If not, part of the problem with dealing with contract projects is that they assume the liability of the project. So, we're going to try to work with them to see if there's even a possibility of opening up maybe 2/3, because you'll see, if you're looking at the project, you'll notice that they've done, if you're standing in the Riverfield looking at the project, they've done the left-hand side and the center first. They still have the right-hand side of the seating to do, but they had to use it in order to get their equipment down to the area. So it's kind of done in phases, but just now that the cat blocks are going on, again, my wife went down and does what she always does. She takes these projects to heart as well, and went down and wanted to get different perspectives of what it's going to look like from here. So she sat on the blocks at different locations, and she was just amazed. And I'll tell a little personal story about the interest of this project. And we lost my father-in-law a couple of months ago, patriarch of the family, great, wonderful guy, and he was really excited about this project. He kept every when he would come, and we lost him at the first part of the year, but when he would come in the evening, he'd want to know when the project was going to start. So, you know, my wife's taken a real interest on behalf of her dad to come in and tells her mom the points, went down, took pictures of it yesterday. So she has some sentimental attachments to it as well because of her dad. But the project itself is just going to be absolutely phenomenal, and we're really excited about getting this thing open and excited about what we'll be able to bring hopefully later in this year, but certainly the lineup for next year once we get through the rough dry, because it's kind of like if you've ever done a grand opening, you always do a soft opening first and then you do a grand opening from the business that I come from. And what we want to do this year is kind of play with it a little bit, make sure it's going to have the right feel. We're working with the Expo Center on, you know, we got to have restroom facilities available and those type of things. So we're going to make some mistakes along the way over the next couple of months. Bear with us, because when we get it figured out, as we do with everything else, it's going to be something to contend with.
It certainly will be. A lot of different projects are going on downtown, and you mentioned the gentleman that was in that had never been to our area in for town for an audit. You know, those are not normally pleasant experiences, but talking about how our downtown looks and how it's changed so much. And I think sometimes when we're here every day and we're driving down our streets, sometimes we forget to take notice. But one of my personal stories, I had some family in over last weekend, and they always want to see everything that's going on. You know, we have the Genuelle Theater, we were talking about terrace seating, and all of the new Hilton Garden Inn downtown and the opportunities that it provides. But we were driving down Hambly and looking, and one of my family members said, "Where do you get these baskets, these flowers? They're so pretty." And you and I have talked about this before. Yeah. You know, I've lobbied to have a whole greenhouse of those flowers for sale, but she had me take her twice around Hambly and to the park, so they could take pictures and take back to the place that they live and say, hey, this is what they're doing here in a little place called Pikeville, Kentucky. They're from Ohio, and so they wanted to see everything, and they were so intrigued by our bears and our new bears, the Hatfield McCoy bears that, you know, we released at Hillbilly Days. And just to think that, you know, when you live around the Columbus area, you know, things become the norm to you. But when you come into a city like ours, and she's asking me to stop and say, let me take a picture of these flowers, let me take a picture of your bears, your theater, all of the different progressive things. And she actually lived in the area years ago, about 40 years ago, and would come to our area. But to see the changes made, I think it's just a lot for us to be proud of. And when we're here every day, sometimes I think, as we've said, a lot of other opportunities that we have here, we take those things for granted sometimes.
I absolutely agree with you, Jill. I had, I'll piggyback off that story with a quick story, is that this weekend, Governor Patton had his family and his daughter in, and you know, his family, and you know, when they come in the area, I don't want to get this wrong, but I think they come in every year, every couple of years, and he kind of hosts an event with them. So, you know, he took them and they did the horse riding. They came downtown and participated at Muscle and Main. He took them up to the breaks. So, you know, and Debbie spoke to the governor's daughter, and she was just, I heard her telling her kids that this was not the town that she grew up in, that it is amazing, and, you know, talked about, I mean, something as basic as the cut-through project, and now all the different amenities that are up at the cut-through. And I agree with that. We tend to forget about, you know, just imagine 6 short years ago, you know, we didn't have the RV park, the sidewalk, the horse trails, the paintball, you know, all the shelters, and I could go on and on. The new walking trails that we just opened up. So I mean, there's so many wonderful things that are happening, and so many more new things to come. Let's
get to some of those things. One will be a street light that it was in the works. I got stopped by construction one day. I knew it was coming, but looks so much better.
It does. You know, and with everything that you do, you get the little tiny projects that we try to get to, and you know, we have to be good stewards of the public funds to make sure that we're doing what we need to do. And you know, in the street, if you've seen the new street light or the traffic light there at the corner of Huffman and the Boulevard, you know, with all the work we've done downtown, the ugly old poles were in there and they were slanting, and there were some safety concerns with a couple of them, the possibility of falling. So, you know, we were able to talk to the Secretary Hancock out of Frankfurt and Transportation Cabinet, and they were so gracious enough to give the city the funding in order to put these new street lights in. So they'll make a huge difference. My understanding is that the only thing we're waiting on, the old ones are still functioning right now. AEP, Kentucky Power, is in today to hook up the power. Once the power is hooked up, then the old lights will be taken down, the new ones will be functional, and it all will be done. So really excited about that. Small project, but it means so much to the aesthetics, but also to the safety and the functionality. And then another project that's right beside of it that I'll mention real quick too is the little small sidewalk extension.
Yes.
You know, UMG did that project. We did it in-house. It takes, again, the folks at Myers Tower the opportunity of walking down towards the university. You know, you can go now. What you have is that whole stretch there. You can walk on both sides of the street. You can come down, and that kind of flows up into the university's parking lot, which connects to the other side of Elm Street, which you can take the sidewalk all the way down, you know, towards Julius Avenue and such. So, you know, it was a good tie-in to all the things that are happening in that one little area there with the theater, and with the new coffee house, and with what's going to happen with some other projects. And
we'll talk about that coming up too.
We got some.
It's just like the small things, like you mentioned before. The smaller projects, although you know they may not be the big on the list, those still contribute greatly to the other things that are going on here and make it a whole lot easier and more accessible for our people. We've talked for ages about our retail development project, but if you've been over by there recently, I was just there yesterday. You see the foundation slabs are there for the Hobby Lobby that is going to be here, and it will be open for the Christmas season. I'm promised, right?
Yes, that's that's what they're saying. No. That's what they're, you know, don't shoot the messenger.
No, but that entire area, you know, we see pictures and it's all starting to take shape. The new post office going to be open very soon. Yes. You see the apartments above the post office taking shape. Gorgeous. And I think I was just driving down through there yesterday and came in the back way, down there where the old Walters Toyota is. And I thought, you know, just a year ago, there was one little building sitting over there, Texas Roadhouse, and now there's going to be so much more. Amazing what a year difference a year makes.
Well, and you know, and one project, as we talked about downtown, one project leads into another, and you know, by far in the 10 years that I've done this, we've been extremely progressive, Jill. I mean, there's been so many projects. The commission has had unbelievable vision, and to see all that vision come to fruition. To see it play out right before your eyes is just amazing. And like you said, we tend to forget what the city park looked like 8 years ago, what downtown looked like 10 years ago, in comparison to what it looks like today. This retail area is no different. There is a multitude of different retailers that are now looking at this development to see what kind of sales that it does that has interest in coming into the market as well. You got the retail developer that is looking at other properties and maybe doing another project as well. So I think some additional things will come out of this at the end of the day. But you know, the project has had its struggles, not from a financial standpoint, but more for just
weather.
Well, the weather. I mean, that's no other way to put it.
Coldest winter on record. Put things back a little bit.
It pushed. I mean, it was. If you're in the building business, is the most. I mean, the worst possible season that you could have had to build within. So he had, and then the other part of it is that, as we knew it would be, the earth project down there was very unique because what you had was, you had the back side of the property over where the new post office is sitting. The new post office was too high, and then you had the center of the property was too low, and then you had the back of the property that was too high on one side and too low on the other side. So there has been a lot of dirt displacement and new fill that had to come in to create the foundations that were needed to stabilize the foundation. So, you know, there was a tremendous amount of work going through the winter months during this you know, very difficult winter time, that they've got to be into the soil, which means that when you get snow or you get rain, it makes it difficult to move that stuff around. So that had been the slowdown. So they're, you know, they're a little, well, I won't say a little, they're behind schedule with the original intent, simply because of this of the weather. They had everything had planned on being open by September. But you know, it'd be probably more like October, November. But with that said, they had, just to give a quick update, August, and I think I said this maybe in a previous show, but between August 27th and September the 7th, I think it is the time frame where they have to turn over the keys to Hobby Lobby, meaning that the building will be completed by then, and along with some other buildings, adjacent buildings. They'll be moving the post office over from their old location to the new location within the next 2 weeks. When they do that, they'll tear down the old post office and they'll start construction on the phase 3. Phase 1 is the new post office and the first 60 apartments that are overhead. And then phase 2 was Hobby Lobby and the strip center. Phase 3 will be where the new post office, or the old post office, is being torn down. So, and phase 3 and 2 should be completed about the same time. We are they had a last phase closing for the remaining funding that they needed in order to complete the project. I just got confirmation yesterday that we'll be closing the first of next week from the bank. Actually, they were going to close this week, but I have to, part of what the government has to do is I have to go before the commission to get approval for the mayor to sign the closing documents, and I can't do that till I have a commission meeting. So we don't have one scheduled until Monday, so they postponed the closing this week for next week. So the last closing will be completed next week. As you can see, the post office is already built. You'll see walls. The slab for Hobby Lobby is already down. The earthwork for the other stores are going up as well. And if you've been out on the site, you see all the new signage that everybody's bragging. The new nationals are bragging about their store coming. I was on Hobby Lobby's website the other day, and of course they're taking applications for management on the website. So you know, everything's moving forward. It's moving rapidly, and that's what tends to happen, Jill. Again, that's the business I was in years ago, not construction, but retail. But what happens is once you get out of the soil, the rest of it goes quickly.
Very fast.
Very fast. Very, very
And you
fast.
know, we're halfway through this year already. Summer, official start of summer is here. We'll have Christmas in 6 months, just about. So a lot of big happenings. And stay tuned. You know, we always have a lot of information on these shows, but I will say this, not to give away anything. Yep. In the next couple of weeks, next 3 weeks maybe, we'll be able to release a few more things.
Yeah, definitely. And as part of the retail development also, probably next week on the retail development. As we've mentioned, and I'll give them a little teaser out there, you know, there was a couple of stores that they were still working on. One that I just got confirmation yesterday that they will be signing a lease this Friday on. So they'll be able to announce that name by next week, I'm assuming. And that will be kind of the final national package that they needed to finish out the right-hand side of the development. The left-hand side, you know, there's some mixed national brands and some local brands that would be part of the strip center. So you have the shopping center on the right, the strip center on the left with the post office. They determined they needed some additional parking, so they were actually expanding the back of the floodway because you can put parking in the floodway, you can't put businesses or businesses. So, so even that part of it's growing. And then on top of that, you know, it'll lead into our River Trail program so I mean, it's amazing.
Which leads me to the next thing we're going to talk about. We talked about retail development, where you're going to be able to shop and do all your Christmas shopping, keeping it local, and that's what we're going to do. Yeah. But our zip line is coming. Our River Trail system is picking up. Big happenings there. So let's start with the zip line first.
Well, the zip line is that I'm hoping that he'll be able to start sooner than later. I had the conversation with the business owner last week. He's excited to get into the area and get moving. Again, it is scheduled to open on or before. Now, I like to use the word before October the 1st. He, again, was supposed to be overseas and to do a project over there, and that project has been postponed. So he's hoping, he had a small project that he had been putting off that he needed to do. He had an existing zip line or a canopy tour that he needed to add 3 additional zip lines to that was growing. So once he finishes that project, he plans on coming to Pikeville to start this one. So he had originally planned on starting sometime in September, but now he's hoping that he should start sometime, maybe, hopefully, fingers crossed, in July. In July,
which would give us our open day around the 1st of October. And the thing about that is, too, is that it just continues to add to the adventures, we'll say, and activities that you can do, because we all know that the fall season here in the mountains is one of the most beautiful times of year. I mean, we love the seasons, but the fall, especially at Bob Amos Park. And this is not just a zip line that's going to go from one point to the other. This is a canopy tour. So there are going to be different levels that you can kind of swing through the mountains on, which is much different than just a traditional zip line.
It is. He's got, with a canopy tour, you'll have some bridges and you'll go off some rocks and you know, there's some things I don't want to spoil yet because I want him to be a surprise. That he's got some unique ideals that I'm actually got. You know, and we'll talk about this in a minute. But I also have him in contact with Alltech, and that's the unique part of what is happening right now, Jill, more than I've ever seen in the 10 years I've been doing this job, is that I mean, again, I've always said the city's been extremely progressive, have thought big and have had big plans happen. But, you know, this year, when you think about all the things that's happening at one time.
In the last 6 months, really.
It's been absolutely phenomenal. And a lot of these projects are playing hand in hand. The zip line, their relationship with some things that they want to do on the trail, that will promote possibly the water trail, because we're looking at partnering, if all things go well with the water trail system, we're looking at partnering the water trail company with the zip line company, and they're both wanting to partner with Alltech, and Alltech has an interest in doing that because part of the Bourbon Trail, they're projecting, I was talking to Dr. Lyons the other day, last year, the first year open, they had close to 40,000 people go through the Bourbon Trail without advertising. This year they're looking at about 60,000. So, looking at what Alltech and the Bourbon Trail will bring to tourism to the area, on top of the already Hatfield-McCoy theme, on top of a river trail, a zip line, horseback riding, terrace seating, and then that's just local. That doesn't count of all the other pristine, areas that they can visit, such as the Breaks, the Jenny Wiley Theater, ACT, Elkhorn, the Hatfield-McCoy Trail. I mean, there's so many different activities in and around the area. The intent we will spend this winter on is putting together, working with county tourism as we've been doing, is working to putting together some packets and some nice marketing pieces, because what they've realized, and the business that you're in, is that there is buying power when you bring 4 or 5 groups together. Then those dollars will go further because it becomes a tourism package and not just visit the zip line, which somebody may want to do a weekend. But if I want to leave Lexington or Cincinnati and come to Pikeville, I want to know there's more to do than just ride the zip line. Well, there is more to do. We've got to be able to market that in a way, and that's the intent. And that's to help not only diversify our economy, but also improve the quality of life for those that we serve within the area, giving them more and more things to do.
Interesting. We're going to talk about Pike TV and EKB TV in just a few moments, moving to a different location. But one of the things that we're wanting to do with our capabilities is to show people. A lot of people want to do things, and there's a lot of things I want to do, a lot of things you want to do. Again, we forget about those things, but able to show everybody in our area what you can do here and within our 30 miles of Pikeville is amazing, and you're still in Pike County. Is the great thing about it.
Thing.
So look for those things, a lot of exciting things to come. River trails, we talked about the zip line, mentioned briefly river trail system, new kayaks, maybe partnering with Smoky Mountain Outdoor. Ronnie Hilton, we lost him here at EKB TV and Pike TV and all together, but he is doing a phenomenal job. And what better person than to guide people down the Levice Fork than Ronnie Hilton?
Well, Ronnie's just a special guy all the way around, done a wonderful thing with Pike TV, and being part of Pike TV in its inception and seeing it grow into what it is, and EKB TV the same. Having him as a city employee now, Ronnie's background, for those of you who may not know, is he came out of the military, graduate from U-Pike, great story, loves fishing and kayaking. Like,
he has taught me so much.
Like nobody, literally on the river almost every single day. And that was before he took this job. One thing I'm very proud of him and working with the fire department and I think the UMG and the fire department both, didn't even tell him. I hired him the first week. We talked about we need to start doing some cleanup in the river. He put together a cleanup, and they pulled 240 tires out of the river down around Pikeville High School. Clean that area up. I mean, and has plans on doing more and more. So we're going to spend a lot of this season doing a lot of cleanup in the city site. There is a tremendous, this is the water trails, and I'm learning this stuff, Jill, so don't shoot the messenger and being told what I'm told. But
baby steps.
It is. But for adventure tourism, water trails is the fastest growing and the most visited sports out there for do-it-yourselfer kind of people that want to go and have an activity. So what we've done is, just like the commission came to me and said, again, what we want to do is, we're not the experts in the field on a lot of these initiatives. We can do events well, but things like horse trails, we're not equestrian people, though that the mayor has a horse farm and loves animals as a veterinarian, but we need to find the experts to do these things. So that's what we're doing, is we're going, instead of coming and trying to operate a river trails, trying to operate an RV park, trying to operate horse trails, we're trying to find the experts in the field to do it for us and let them come in and create jobs. Let them have ownership in these projects and let them make these things successful because they know how to do it. And the
great thing is that we have the people and the resources here. We don't have to go and do massive, you know, nationwide searches. We have so many experts right here, like Ronnie, like Miss Betty Tackett, who knows everything I believe there is to know about horses, and what a facility she has.
Oh, it's unbelievable.
And it's just really just boomed and taken off. And you know, you go up there. I go up there sometimes just to kind of get away, you know, and to be within that facility, but knowing that it's literally down a hill from the city. It's kind of neat.
Well, you bring it up, and I'll, because we haven't talked about the horse trail, but I got an email yesterday from my good friend Jetty Thompson, and who lives over on Island Creek, and Jetty's just a dear lady, love her dearly, but she sent me an email yesterday laughing that I might want to, because we learn as we go, but laughing that we need to put some probably signs up on the trail, because some folks there's some deviated trails up there that aren't really trails on the horse trail, that I guess some folks have wandered off and end up over on Island Creek in her backyard. So we needed, so you know, as we say, we learned. So we're going to go up and put some signage up with some arrows, make sure people know where those turns are.
And direct their path, so to speak.
Make sure that they don't get lost up there. But it's, again, just a magnificent facility, a great addition to the community. On top of, and that's the beauty of it, Jill, is as we bring in river trails, as we bring in zip line, as we bring in the bourbon trails, that will all breed business for each other, because, you know, as we mentioned, I was in, 2 weeks ago, I went to Gatlinburg on a business trip. I was there went down the night before and got up the next morning and went over and met with Daniel, who owns Smoky Mountain Outdoor Adventure, which is the Tennessee's largest kayaking, canoeing, rafting facility. They operate off the Little Pigeon. He's self-proclaimed to be the second largest in the nation. Last year, and had over 50,000 visitors that he attended to alone.
Really,
yes,
50,000.
50,000, and it wasn't his best year. But they do things. There's I think 12 different companies that have permits to operate on the Little Pigeon River. He by far, in my opinion, does the best job there. He has I went and looked at all the different facilities. He has a unbelievable facility he has built for himself. You know, the guy does all of his own building, and you know, we were tickled with him because when we showed up, he was mowing. You know, this is a guy that he's on the Chamber of Commerce for Gatlinburg, or was. I think he's off now, but he served on the Chamber of Commerce for Gatlinburg.
That's no little feat.
No, owns a strip center in Gatlinburg, but he's down there cutting his own grass, and you know, he's got 168 employees that are mostly college kids that come, and you know, their business starts in March and it ends in October. Most of these kids come and they live in little small, almost like a camp is what houses that they live in there during the summer months and operate these trail systems. But it's a massive system. He's got it down to a fine science, beautiful facilities, great vision. I think he owns about 30% of the market there that he's catering to. So first-class facility. So again, we went big and we went after the best, and got him interested. We're negotiating with him right now. We're hoping we can convince him that Pikeville is a place that he wants to open a new business. He loves the area. His was actually this Sunday and Monday. He and 16 of his all of his managers and his banker, his attorney, and the rest out of there were 17 total, including himself. The rest were his key management staff, his marketing director, his finance director, and then all of his different managers that he has that operates the facility. Because the way that they operate in Gatlinburg is that they operate off of a plant that produces power. So they open the gates for controlled water releases that creates the water trails there that you have some class 3 and rapids, and it really very, very unique and safe operation. So ours is a little bit different in the sense that ours is more of a lazy river kind of feel that could be self-guided versus having to have all these people here in rafts. But he knows how to do it. He knows how to market. He understands water safety. He understands the hydraulics. You know, and perfect pair up with them this weekend was Ronnie. Because Ronnie can open his phone and tell me what the velocity of the water is and what the levels, and you know, and it amazes me because you know, it's things that, not to bore people with the facts, but you know, and realizing that when you have a rain event, of how long it takes it to get from the dam to us on a controlled release, and when the water level will subside. Because we went out, I went to look at the river on Saturday, and the water was up a little bit. And Ronnie said, "Don't worry, by X amount of time, it'll be at a perfect level." And sure enough, it had dropped literally 3 feet to that level. Yeah. So, so we've got somebody that Ronnie's working on a fishing tournament that will be held in the river, hopefully this year. He's working with Daniel, the guy again that owns the river company, who has some interest in hosting some fishing expeditions. So this business is looking at expanding into several different areas. So get online, you can check it out for yourself, Smoky Mountain Outdoor Ventures, to see all that they do, how professional they are, what they can provide to the area. Our hope is to getting them here. When I met with him 2 weeks ago, he shook my hand, said, "I'm 95% in. I need to get my banker and an attorney down there because there's going to be a significant investment on my end to build these facilities that I need to build." So Ronnie, I haven't spoke to him since his visit. Ronnie said he was very intrigued and excited about the potential, saw a definite market here. So we'll see. But what I'll say is, if he's not interested, I have a plan B. I have another company that will do it for sure. Mm-hmm. But again, we want to go out just like we did with the zipline company, who is the zipline company that we hired. Robert is the biggest and best in the nation. So it's just not about doing it; it's about doing it big and doing it right.
Big or go home. Go big or go home.
Right.
It's the way we live by. Now you have adventures?
Yes.
Question mark on our sheet. Is it just? Is there new adventures?
Well, when I say adventures, the intent is to tie it all together once again. So when you're talking about what's happening over in Williamson with the four-wheeling, with the Happy McCoy trails, you talk about adventure tourism up at Elkhorn City with the river and rafting there, which is a little more than I'll ever get on. And then you talk about, again, horse trails adventure. Zip line adventures. I mean, all this, again, the intent was to say, look at all that's happening right now, look at where we're heading, and it's not about becoming, I've said this in the past, it's not necessarily just about becoming a Pigeon Forge. We don't want to be a Pigeon Forge.
We want to be our own.
We want to have our own identity.
Right.
We want to be a mixture of some of the things that Gatlinburg offers, some of the things that Asheville offers, because we want to keep our own identity, but we also want to open up trade opportunity, a service demand, improve quality of life, and all those things are happening before the public's eyes right now.
Something else that's happening before the public's eyes, and there's been a lot of talk, and we've waited a little bit to talk about this because this is going to take a good portion of our time. There is the name Alltech.
Yeah.
And we mentioned it, just seems like we mentioned it about 3 months ago. I mean, it's just been a very recent discussion that we have had here. And in that last 3 to 4 months, every time I turn around, we're talking about the hatchery, and we're talking about the distillery, and we're talking about all these different things that Dr. Lyons has the vision for our area. He really has fallen in love and taken such an interest in our little piece of the world that it is going to mean big, big things for our residents, our entire region. And just update us. I don't even know where to start.
And I don't either, Jill.
There's so much. I could just go down a list of things.
Well, and I'll say it this way. When I walked in a moment ago, and I get scatterbrained when it comes to all this because I was trying to put it into a way to explain it to everybody, there's just so much going on. But I don't think you'll mind me saying, when I walked in a moment ago, you said I looked a little stressed. And it's not that I'm stressed, I'm having the time of my life. Literally, several weeks off without any time off because there is so much going on from morning to night. Last night at 7 o'clock, Dr. Lyons calls me. Got another idea. That's just how things happen with Alltech. Yeah. And again, because you're going to hear this name a very long time in our community, I challenge anybody out there that's listening or watching, get online, Google Alltech's name, see what this company is about, because it is a fascinating story. And you're going to see a lot of that story playing out in our city.
That's true, and I did just that. A couple of months ago, or 3 months ago, I guess, whatever it was, when we started talking about it, we started talking about Dr. Lyons had visited, and kind of low-key at first, just kind of getting the lay of the land, and knew kind of what he had in mind. I did that. I knew a few of the things that Alltech did, just the vast amount of interest they have in a lot of different things. But I stayed on that website, seemed like for a couple of hours, just looking at the different things. And the great thing about that company, and you and I spoke about this on a previous show, it all feeds back. It's a complete circle of things that just one breeds another thing. I mean, they recycle and they reuse so many of their resources. I mean, that's the only way to put it, to go back into their company, and they're going to do that right here in our town, and I just think it's remarkable.
Well, it is, and you know, Dr. Lyons has a regional approach. I mean, there is other things that will grow outside this community, but you have to have a base. Like everything else, a wheel has to have a hub, and that's what Pikeville is. You know, we are Pike County, but it's also, as Pikeville is where the county government is, it's where the county school board government is, it's where city school board government is. You have to have a strong hub in order to make the wheel roll. So there is a lot of opportunity that's going to take place, not just in the city of Pikeville, but we look regionally. You know, I met yesterday with my good friend Bob Scott, you know, who is a big part of the Hatfield-McCoy feud. You know, Bob's got a lot of great and wonderful ideals. You know, we work with the county tourism board, and this project is no different. We see it expanding, and on the role that I've been able to play with SOAR, and we've got great leaders on SOAR from our community, people like Gene Hill, who's on the executive committee, Paul Patton, who's chair of the Futures Committee. You got people like Brad Hall and Jared Arnett, and I'm going to leave a bunch out, so I'm going to stop right there. But that are part of the SOAR initiative, chairing different committees, and looking for opportunity. The Alltech deal was no different, you know, and what we've done recently is that I've introduced Alltech to SOAR, and you know, they're having some conversations now of how SOAR and Alltech can work together. This intent, or this project and how it got started. Jill, and I may be repeating myself, but I think it's important for the community to know. And if it takes the remainder of the show, we'll stop here because it's such an important project. But Alltech, the way this thing got started was, again, back in February, I was in, well, I'll back up even further than that. Back December, February, or November, December, I'd heard Alltech's name and knew of them because my son lives in Winchester, and Alltech has their algae factory there, and knew the name, knew they were a Kentucky-based company, knew it was almost $1 billion a year in the United States. I mean, 127 countries, I think, 127, 129, within that range, countries that they do business in. Knew a little bit about them, but really didn't know a whole lot. But had heard that they were looking for opportunities in Kentucky, and had heard a word that Dr. Lyons had understood that some of the things that were taking place in eastern Kentucky. So Dr. James Hurley knew Dr. Lyons, and so did Governor Patton, were acquaintance of his, and I was doing a little addition on the back of my house one winter evening, and I got a call from James that said, I need to bring you over a pamphlet, a booklet that I want you to see, that I had met with Alltech, and they're looking at some opportunities somewhere in Kentucky, and thought that you would be the best person to partner him with to have some conversation. So James comes, he shows up, I climb off my ladder, comes to the backyard, and we sit there and we have an hour-long conversation about Dr. Lyons' vision for education and how he is tied to the University of Pikeville, but that he also has some other thoughts. So from that conversation, Paul Patton calls, and Nathan Holman, who works for Dr. Lyons, he's a COO of the company, comes to Pikeville, and he meets with myself and James and Nathan and his wife came in, and we took my car and put them in the back seat, and we took them around and gave them a tour of Pikeville and talked about all the things we were doing. Well, they leave, and I don't hear from them for a while, so I get kind of antsy, as I normally do, and the commission's kind of saying, well, where are we at? Is anything happening? And so I called up and tried to get a meeting with Dr. Lyons. Well, I was in Frankfort. I serve on the Kentucky League of Cities Executive Board. This is in February, and I've got an executive board meeting down there. And James happens to call me. We work on a lot of initiatives with the university. I think we may have been working on the business college project at the time. And he said, he said, sorry, I tried to call him, and he didn't answer, and he called me back and said, Donovan, I'm sorry, I was on the phone with Dr. Lyons. There's a project we're working on with the university. I said, well, do you think he's at the inn? And I said, if so, can you get a hold of him? I said, I don't want to be too forward to ask for a cell number, but if you can get a hold of him, I'd like to meet with him. So James calls me back. He said, luckily, he hadn't left the office yet, just talked to his secretary. He says, instead of calling him, if you can be there within the next 45 minutes, he'll meet with you. So I left my board meeting and said, sorry, I got business. I got city business to take care of. I ran over to Nicholasville as quickly as I could to make the meeting. And what I found was this is a guy that's a CEO, president, owner, operator, initiator of a business that not only welcomed me into his office, but had some interest in who I was. I sat with him for 3 hours. He gave me a tour of the building, took me out. Again, a guy of this magnitude, I was just kind of starstruck from the standpoint of, wow, he really has a vision. So as I listened to him telling me about Alltech and the vision of what he'd like to create, and I said, I got the perfect place for you to do that. So let's talk. So we talked about the market, and that's important to him, is if we're going to come in and look at a distillery brewery, we have to have the traffic flow. You can't just stick it out anywhere. It has to be somewhere where it's going to make an improvement in it. So we did that. We had those discussions. Well, next thing I know, he calls me up and says, I'm ready to come to Pikeville. So since that February meeting, I will tell you that a day doesn't hardly go by that he doesn't call me, or at least email me, but pretty much calls. It's very humbling to the fact that somebody's taken such an interest. The reason I believe, and he can speak better to this, but I've heard him say this, part of the reason that he has so much interest in Pikeville is because of the Alltech story. And again, if you Google it, Dr. Lyons and his wife Deidre is from Ireland, a place called Dundalk, Ireland, which is about, it's right on the border of the northern and southern Ireland. Dr. Lyons came. He was he graduated with a doctorate degree and as a distiller, and he worked on a couple of national brands to help them develop their brew, and decided that he would come to the United States and create a business on his own. So here he is now, all these years later, with a major successful business. Now, when I say the reason he's got an interest in Eastern Kentucky is because, one, is Eastern Kentucky has a deep root. I mean, there's a lot of roots in Eastern Kentucky from people that located from Ireland and from English and Irish kind of background. So what Ireland is going through with their economy right now is somewhat similar to what Eastern Kentucky is going on with their economy. So how I kind of tie it together is that one of his visits, I went and picked him up at the airport here in Pikeville, and as we toured and I took him back to the plane, I had a little gift for him, and I came out and I said, Dr. Lyons, here's a little gift. It's an Eastern Kentucky walking stick, and most of us know what that is. Mm-hmm. And he laughed at me, and he said, that's not what that is. And I said, yeah.
What is it?
It is. He said, Donovan, with that Irish accent, he said, Donovan, it's a shillelagh. And I said, a shillelagh? And I said, yeah. And then I kind of thought, well, I know what a shillelagh is, but it dawned on me. So he gets back to to Lexington, and as soon as he gets off the plane 2 hours later, I get an email with him with a picture and a definition of what a shillelagh is. And again, a shillelagh is it's a Irish walking stick that's got more of a big piece that fits under your arm underneath of it. But again, it's the same thing. So what his point with me is that a lot of the heritage that came out of Europe and Ireland has made its way to the hills of Eastern Kentucky because of the history of the Irish people locating here. So he has an interest because of the heritage. He has an interest because of the economic climate that both industries are in. So what he's basically decided to do is to look at Eastern Kentucky as a pet project, and it will be. I'm not saying he's doing it for free. He's not. There's a business model he's following. He's been very, very successful. So what he's doing in Ireland, he's imaging over in Eastern Kentucky. So what you're going to find is for example, the distillery brewery in Dublin, Ireland. They took an old church with the oldest cemetery on record there, and they are putting in a tourism place, a distillery brewery, with a tourism twist to it of the cemetery, which has over 60,000 people recorded buried there, and over 200,000 people suspected to be buried there. Wow. Over the years and Ireland, like most other countries, has a much longer history than we do. But so that's kind of, when you say full circle, of how his roots, his love for Kentucky, his deep friendship that he has forged with the city of Pikeville. And so what he has announced, of course, is the distillery. The first phase is the distillery brewery, and on top of that, a gift center and a gift shop. I'm sorry, I'm getting it all sideways because there's so many
Way
of
to
it.
tour, and then a gift shop
Thank
as
you.
well.
So a visitor center is what I was trying to think of. So the visitor center, the gift shop, and the distillery and a brewery. So that's their entry into the market. There is, several things that I can't talk about because it's their job. Alltech's making the initiative, but we are working with them hand in hand. As a matter of fact, and some of this will be announced at a later date. Had a great trip to Frankfurt, met with the governor's staff with Alltech this past Friday, with a lot of local folks that were with us as well, working on another major project that we hope to announce in the near future. So there is so much going on with Alltech's name associated with it. During the symposium, Dr. Lyons talked about the possibility of an aquatic facility, a chicken facility. We went down and met. I took Dr. Lyons down. Steve Smith, a good friend of mine with President and CEO of Food City. They have formed some partnerships that they're going to be working together. That's a spin-off of another major business that's coming to Kentucky that will be relying upon Eastern Kentucky as a model to help them, with some other initiatives. So, Jill, I'm telling you, I can't, I'm biting at the bit. It's kind of like the retail development. Our landscape could forever change. And I commend again the mayor and the commission on the vision that they had 10 years ago when I started, with laying the infrastructure that they've done, with putting some things in motion as they have done. There was a recent story in the News Express about what's happening with Marion's Branch. That project is moving forward, I will say. So without saying more, you can kind of put two and two together to realize that there is a lot of stuff happening that will lead to job creation, entrepreneur opportunity. You tie that into all the things that's going on with adventure tourism. You tie that into all the infrastructure that's being placed. Our community is forever changing, and that is rolling off from one thing to the other. And you mentioned a moment ago about Pike TV and EKB TV. As you know, where we're sitting is where the new distillery brewery is going. We are closing. The city owns the property where the old Dollhairs building is, where this facility is
sitting right now.
Right now, this is part of what is being sold. The old Thacker Funeral Home was the last business that was over there, which is 2 buildings beside of us, is also being sold. So it's a massive footprint. I've seen the design. They haven't released it publicly yet, and I'm telling you, I'm in awe. Again, if you want a kind of a taste of what kind of architect that they do, if you go to Town Branch Center, look it up on the web. You can see their facility in Lexington. Deetra, who does all their design work, which is Dr. Lyons' wife, a wonderful, fascinating, beautiful lady, love her dearly. Her vision is just beyond this world, and what that from a really looking at all the intricate details of something. So if you'll go on Town Branch Center, you can kind of see what they've done there, and you'll kind of give an ideal of what they're planning on doing here. But probably Alltech, they are working, make sure I wasn't running out of time, they're working on a press announcement probably sometime the first part of July. So I think at that time, Dr. Lyons will probably be here in Pikeville to invite the public in for an unveiling of what this distillery and brewery will look like as part of the Bourbon Trail. And then, and Jill, that's, I won't say the core of their business, but that's how kind of their business got started. So that's what they wanted to bring from the standpoint of bringing in, as Dr. Lyons said, what would you think about us bringing 30 or 40,000 people downtown a year that will eat in restaurants and stay in hotels? So that's the vision.
When you say that, you say it kind of nonchalantly. What would you think about this? What would you think about 30 or 40,000 people coming into our downtown area that aren't normally there and have never been to our area? I know in your business and with what you do with government, you think, light bulbs just start going off because you think those are things that, maybe a few years ago we never dreamed would be possible here. But because of Dr. Lyons and his interest, and like you said, the history and the heritage that is so similar to where he comes from, it's a perfect match.
Well, it is, and none of this would have been possible if it hadn't have been for the City Commission 10 years ago in 2005 adopting a comprehensive plan. Because what we were able to do, we were able to annex additional properties. Because what I can say, Jill, is that Dr. Lyons was looking at coming into Eastern Kentucky not just for one business and out. He's looking at trying to create an economy, an opportunity. But he's got to do it through their process in what they know and what they're experts in. So it's not that anybody can bring up a business model and say, here's what we want to do. They're wanting to use their own business model, their own experience, their own expertise, and bring those into our community. I was in a meeting again last Friday with Dr. Lyons, and how he opened the meeting and speaking with the governor's staff is what Alltech, what's funny about it, it lets you know how the good Lord works at times, is how I say it. Things just work so much in unison. I just get chills. But, you know, Mary Laster, who's the cabinet secretary for the governor, had emailed me the night before and asked me to give her a couple paragraphs of what the meeting will entail and what we are bringing forth, so they have some idea. So I did that, and the email I'd sent had the word that catalyst, and that what we want to do is utilize Alltech as a catalyst, because their core business will build and bring other businesses, is what the intent is. So when Dr. Lyons stood up on Friday, what he said is that we want to become the catalyst. Not knowing that I had sent that email the night before, and actually had the word, not only word written down, but the definition. Mm-hmm. So everything, again, it just works in unison as to what Alltech is trying to accomplish. Now, I caution to say that they still have their due diligence to do, and the numbers have to work. You know, they can't, you know, any business is here to make a profit. But what we want is businesses to locate in Eastern Kentucky. So from the standpoint of what those businesses will be, I'll leave that to Alltech. I just know from what our conversations are and what they're committing to the city, in return of what they're committing to, if all the stars align the way that we're working towards. So I think, again, the general public is going to be, as we have promised with everything else that we brought forward, whether it's, you know, retail shopping or downtown, or you know, this is going to be no different. This is going to be huge for the area, big for job creation and opportunity, from a catalyst standpoint to open up other opportunities.
Lots of great things coming. And like you said, around the first part of July, they will have a press release and statement to kind of lay out some of the things that they're working on that we're not able to speak about right now.
Well, I think what they'll do, Jill, in all honesty, is what they'll do is they'll come in and they'll unveil the distillery brewery. Mm-hmm. They will come back probably later in the month and give you a phase 2, and then come back after that and give you a phase 3. So, you know, they understand, in working with government, what we're asking them to do is to help us be as transparent as possible. Obviously, when they are able to announce it, we need to let the public know what's going on, because there's a lot of, in a small community, there's a lot of buzz, a lot of talk. And they want to do that too. I mean, they want to be partners. I don't know if I mentioned this or not, but, you know, the vice president and the director of, I think it's vice president and director of legal affairs for their entire company across seas and such, is a guy by the name of Mike Castle, who is from Prestonsburg, Kentucky. So Mike has a big interest in Eastern Kentucky as well, and Dr. Lyons has kind of said, you know, Donovan, I'm going to work through Mike as well, because he knows the area. So, you know, Mike and I talk. Again, I've made some great friends. The commission is excited about the relationship. They understand where this thing is heading. But what I want the viewing folks have to understand is although we're using the word Alltech, there's a lot of other things that's working off of this also, that will be other companies, other businesses, other opportunities. So it's exciting times. I mean, it really is exciting times, and I'm looking forward to Alltech being able to come forward and talk more about what they're wanting to do.
Well, we're out of time.
Well,
we have some things left on our list, but I'll tell you what, we can get to a lot of those next time. I do want to mention Main Street Live coming up this weekend. It's the 50s and 60s night that all gets underway on Friday. That is the 20th at 7 o'clock. There's a few things on here that we're going to require a little bit more discussion with, so I'm going to table those till the next time we meet. We'll do it again very soon.
Yep.
And have all sorts of other great information.
Well, if anybody wants to see this stuff, log on to www.cityofpikeville.com. Mm-hmm. or tourpikeville.com, and you can see all the events that are going on in and around our community.
Yeah, you can also book your kayaking trips too that way. It'll be a lot of fun. Donovan, always a pleasure.
My pleasure.
Great information. A very progressive little town we've got here.
Amen.
This has been the Pikeville City Managers Report. Thank you so much for joining us. Until next time, good day.